Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Ghosts and Spirits video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. This one once again based on one of your newer suggestions, and also this one having to do with yet another location. So those of you that happen to be near Hong Kong, if you happen to have a chance to go visit this location, you'll be in for some pretty good and interesting haunts that have permeated this location for a good while. I'll explain each one individually here, and then also explain how there may be some contradicting info associated with those haunts. That still doesn't take away the fact that those ghostly hauntings still occur, but at least what led up to them is still being disputed. But it has to do with this. You're looking at that location now. It's called the Tat Tak School. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating info associated with this abandoned location. For starters, you have to go again there to Hong Kong in order to find this place. I love abandoned locations. I love visiting those locations, walking within them. Several of the ghost hunts that I've been on happen to visit a lot of the abandoned hospitals here in the Texas area. Every time I go visit one, it's always fascinating to walk within each door, each hallway, staircases, even sometimes the roof, the basements, and then be able to wonder what it was like when it was actually open, when it was active. Now it's just pretty much a set of decaying rooms, but back then, if you could just snap your fingers and go back in time, you get to see what was happening during its heyday. I just love imagining that when I visit these locations. Such was the case when I was seeing these pictures that you're looking at now of the Tat Tak School. So now, before its hauntings, this was a school that was apparently operating for a good bit. It was apparently at another location somewhere around 1931 to 1961. Not where it's at now, it was at a completely different location. And then around 1974 up until about 1998, that's where it's at now. That's where you see its current spot. It was operating as a full school, complete with principals, teachers, and of course students all there. Somewhere though around early 1998, it ended up closing, and I read in one article it was because there was too few students to help sustain, I'm guessing, the costs associated with the school. So it was decided to consolidate things with another locations. And then it was just outright abandoned. Probably more costly to tear it down and move things over. So instead it was just left as is. Such is the case with these hospitals again that I visited. It's far more costly to do anything with them other than just leave them as is. And I love visiting those rooms, opening specific drawers, finding paperwork dated from so much long ago, stuff that just seemed real relevant then that nothing has to do now. So I totally imagine the people that visit this place happen to think the same thing when they see these spots. Now, shortly after its abandonment, though, that's when these hauntings started to come into play. People around the area that live there, people visiting that area, even some for fun or some for actual ghost hunts, they all started to say the same thing. This was a school that became ripe for hauntings. Now, here's some of the various descriptions associated with those hauntings. If there's one that stands out, it's this. It's the ghost of apparently a red-dressed woman. A woman of some sort that is roaming the hallways, roaming the areas there, dressed in a very specific red dress. And the legend around her goes that she used to be either a school mistress or some kind of teacher at that location, and for whatever reason she decided to commit suicide, and she committed suicide within one of the bathroom stalls. She hung herself. How she was able to do that by herself, I don't know, but she was able to do so, and then that's where her ghost roams that location. And this legend goes that she either hung herself either from suicide, from depression, or if you hear from other angles, she was raped, and then because of that experience, then that's when she decided to hang herself within that bathroom stall. And then that's where her ghost permeates during that time period. In fact, various people that have gone to that location, including some of the people that roam the streets, because even then, the streets surrounding that school are also said to be haunted. They'll see the ghosts associated with that location, but the one that stands out the most, that you'll have a better chance of seeing, is the one with the red dress. It doesn't seem like she seems to be someone bad, like someone that will come out and hurt people necessarily. She just roams the hallways or whatever within that location, so you'll have a much better chance of spotting her there. Another ghost that stood out actually came from a show that was running on National Geographic, and looking at the research, it's got an interesting title. It says, "I Wouldn't Go In There." That's essentially the name of the show. And one episode, they chronicled people that visited this Tat Tak School. And one of the gentlemen that was there, apparently he plays something called war games, where him and a bunch of buddies, they start shooting at each other with play guns, and I don't know if they're using some kind of lasers or something else, but they play at night specifically this set of war games where they go to these locations, preferably abandoned, and then try to find each other and then quote unquote kill each other while they were playing this fun game. Well, as it turns out, when they visited this school, one of the guys went in there and he went into a room that later turned out to be a gymnasium, or what was the gymnasium while the school was running. And then that's where he said that he saw the ghost of a man dressed in a white shirt squatting down towards one of the walls, looking towards the wall but not paying attention to much anything else. And one of the friends that later came up to him, he asked him if he saw the same thing, if he saw the ghost, and they did. And then that's when they got pretty much the heck out of there. So that was another encounter associated with that location. Other things that people seem to encounter too, maybe it could be on the side of possession. There was a group of school kids or students that went to explore the school back in 2001. And then when they did so, they were there, I guess just wandering throughout various parts. For some reason, though, one of the young girls within the group suddenly started acting hysterically and emotionally, almost as if she was possessed by something else. But it really got to a bad point because at that time she started to then strangle herself. She was actually taking her hands and then trying to strangle her own neck. And when the other students tried to interfere and stop her, that's when she started to bite another boy as well. Again, it made it seem like she was absolutely just possessed at the moment and wasn't in control over anything occurring to her. She was taken to the school, from the school to one of the nearby hospitals and looked at, and it's still not explained essentially why this happened to her. But there you have various examples of people being witnessing this stuff, and then that's all associated with the hauntings at the school. I already mentioned the roads too. People apparently see apparitions and other forms of ghosts within the roads leading to the school, and whoever is at location now, if you go there, it's still abandoned to this very day. It's a set of living decay. It's there still with broken doors, broken windows, eerily stuff. You'll probably get to see the usual graffiti and other items that people leave their marks on whenever they visit locations like this. But if you go, always go with trepidation, because again, I imagine this is private land and this is not something that is open to the public, but that hasn't stopped people from essentially visiting. Now, as far as the contradictions I was mentioning earlier, it's this. Remember the story I was mentioning about the woman, the ghost with the red dress, the most famous one there at that location, and how she was apparently someone that committed suicide because of either a rape or something else that was really traumatic. Well, someone asked the police there in that area to do a little bit of investigation to see if they could find any official report related to her suicide, because you can imagine if there was a suicide, the police would be involved afterward and try to find out whether it was truly that or if she was murdered, something along those lines. But no history was found. Nothing was found in terms of anyone at that school before or after its heyday committing suicide within that location. Now, there has been apparently the body of a woman that was found somewhere nearby, but still, this official story, like the legend as far as a suicide happening at that school where there was a teacher or a school mistress, that hasn't been confirmed. So people think actually that it was just almost like an urban legend that grew from that area. One person told another, and then they spread it about, and eventually that just becomes truth afterward, and that's where that story is. Another one where there's a form of contradiction has to do with the legends of the ghosts surrounding that location. People say that it's from a number of villagers that were massacred back in 1941 during some form of Japanese occupation, and then it was almost like a local fight between them and the British. And the way the story goes is that there was hundreds of people that were killed during this time, and some of their graves actually outline the school in the hillside area right next to it. So that's where a lot of the hauntings can purportedly come from. But again, looking at some of the info from one website that I found, apparently this stuff is also hard to confirm. There hasn't been too much listed as far as these are the villagers that were killed, these are their names, this is what occurred. There are some cannons there that are listed there as well nearby that people state are from that battle. But someone please, if you can point it out, if there's more info related to that. The specific info that I found at least seems to contradict all that stuff related to the massacre. And then the graves were apparently part of some kind of clan that used to live in that area and not necessarily tied to the massacre itself. Now, it doesn't take away from the fact about all the hauntings still happening there. That's still going on. People still report it. People still see it. But as it being tied to those specific instances, that's where the contradiction comes. But the Tat Tak School there in Hong Kong still heavily listed as one of the most haunted places there in Hong Kong. So anyone that happens to be there, anyone that's visiting, maybe had family, lived there in the past, if you know any more information about this school, maybe you've been there yourself as well, then please post those comments below. It'd be really, really great to hear. If I was in that area, that would definitely be a place I would love to visit just to be able to see it in person, not just for the state of living decay buildings that I love visiting, but also be able to try to catch some of these ghosts in person. Go with carefulness though, because again, if it involves possession and what happened with that young girl, if there's something there that truly does do that, then you must go with some kind of protection or just be very hesitant, be very careful about what you do. So, all right, everyone. Thanks again as always. Take care.